In today's episode of Locked On Pistons and Locked On Cavs podcast, we go over the round 2 matchup. How will the Pistons be able to defeat the Cavs? Do the Cavs expose the Detroit Pistons? We'll break it down. Today's episode, Locked On Pistons and Cavs podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons and Locked On Cavs podcast. Today, me and Danny, host of Locked On Cavs, will ask each other questions, try to understand each other's teams, then give each other our predictions on how this series will play out. But before we get into that, and Cavs fans, I think you'll enjoy this as well. It was brought to my attention by a lot of Locked On Pistons listeners that I apparently flippantly, on accident, made a deal with them that they let me know about. So let's travel back a few days so you guys know what we're talking about here. Still feel that way. I do. I don't think they can win 3 straight games. I think they've dug themselves too much of a hole. If they were down 3-2, I think they could still win. If they were down, when they were down 2-1, I still thought they could win. If they were even down 2-0, I still would think they could win. Winning 3 straight, this team has not given us a reason to believe in the playoffs that they can do that. My prediction, and I am praying that I'm wrong. I will happily end up on freezing cold takes. And I will laugh at myself. I will wear a clown costume under the podcast. Wear a clown costume under the podcast. Wear a clown costume under the It's, I have to.
You're a man of your word, Koo.
I had to, I didn't know I even said that. They let me know, and I, have to. I'm a man of my word. But let's go ahead and get into the episode now. All right, Danny, I'll start, and yes, I'll be wearing this the whole episode. I'm glad that you guys in the podcast got to hear the horn. The horn is a good touch. All right, Danny, the first question I have is, I think this is something that a lot of Pistons fans feel like works in their favor. So I just want to know where the Cavs fans are at, or where you're at with this. Is there any concerns right now with James Harden going into the playoffs? Everyone knows about his history. He was added to this team because he was going to be more reliable than Darius Garland. And I think he's been good for you guys. But is there any concern right now going into the second round with how James Harden's played?
No, I think that he has turned the ball over a little bit too frequently, which I know is something that does play into Detroit's hands because they were a really good defense at creating turnovers, and that was the thing that really got their offense going. But I think all the other stuff, like the reason the Cavs went to 7 games against the Raptors, and that was a series that was longer than it should have been. It wasn't because of James Harden. Like, I thought James was really consistent in that series. Now, like I said, he had too many turnovers. He had a game with 8 turnovers. He had a game with 7 turnovers, but Game 7 on Sunday night, he only shot 3 of 9 from the field, but he got to the line, I think it was 13 times, scored 18 points on 9 shots, turned the ball over twice. Like, that, to me, was a very acceptable performance from James Harden, because you have to look at this. Like, the expectations for James are not right now what they were in 2019 or 2018 when he was the MVP of the league on a really, really great Rockets team that gave the Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant all they could handle. And they were a hamstring away, right? Like, if Chris Paul doesn't get hurt, they probably win that series and they probably win the championship that year. That's not who James is anymore, but that's not who he's expected to be now. He is their second or third guy offensively. And I think that is a role that fits him right now at this point in his career. So the shooting is going to come and go. It kind of comes and goes with everybody in the NBA. And I think that the way that he played in both Game 6 and Game 7, it's never going to dispel the narrative that is out there about who he's been in big games. That's never going to go away because he's played in so many of them throughout his career. Like, let's be real, a Game 6 or a Game 7 against the Toronto Raptors in the first round of the playoffs is not a needle mover there. But I do think that he played probably better than I think a lot of expectations, given his history in those spots, probably better than what his expectations were. So I don't think that there's a ton of concern right now about James. I think, if anything, there's more concern that Donovan Mitchell didn't have a great series against Toronto.
So you mentioned that, and just let me know if it's hard for you to, get through the podcast with, looking at a clown.
So you're lucky because, right now, if you're watching the podcast, you can see me. We are making eye contact. I can't see you. So the way my setup is, my camera is like 18 inches above my computer screen. So
Fair
I
enough.
can't even see you right now. So this means nothing to me. I'll be able to get through it. I just have to keep looking at the camera.
Fair. You mentioned that James Harden is supposed to be your second or third. Who's the second guy if James Harden isn't stepping up? Are you guys getting what you want? I'm assuming from Evan Mobley. Have you liked what you've seen from Mobley so far in the playoffs? There's been a lot of talk, obviously, over the years about, are they too soft? There's been like a soft narrative around the Cavs. Do you believe they've done a good job so far in the first round, and Mobley specifically, of kind of pushing that to the side? Do you like what you've seen from him?
Yeah, I think there are no awards given out for first round series, and there shouldn't be. But like if there was an MVP of the first round, I would have given it to Evan Mobley. I thought that they won that series because he was their best player. He was awesome in games 1 and game 2. Like he was so good in those games, and the Cavs blew out the Raptors. He had 2 bad games in 3 and 4. He was not good whatsoever in those games, but game 5 in a series that was 2-2 at home, got to have a game. Evan Mobley was their best player on the floor. Game 6, he was their best player on the floor. I thought he played well in game 7. He only played 27 minutes because he was in foul trouble. But like he answered the bell, I thought, in that postseason series. And I do think when he's been healthy in the postseason, he's been a really good playoff player before. Like you can even go back to his 3rd season when they played the Boston Celtics. He was the Cavs' best player in that series, and Donovan Mitchell was out with an injury, but he was Cleveland's best player in that series. So he does have a bit of a history of being a guy that is really good in the postseason. And in that series against Toronto, aside from games 3 and 4, when he was not good whatsoever, I thought he did exceptionally well offensively. I think he's a force defensively, no matter what. And I think too, like the soft thing does get thrown out there. The Cavs really did in that series against the Raptors physically acquit themselves. They were so good physically. Like they out physicaled the Raptors, I thought, for a lot of that series, particularly with their bigs. Like you cannot, and you know, I wrote this in my preview over at the Inside Shot. Like there has to be an indefinite pause on calling the Cavs soft after what they did in that series, particularly Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. Like the quarter that Jared Allen had in the 3rd quarter in game 7, where he had 14 points and 10 rebounds, and that quarter alone was the most dominant quarter I've ever seen him play. Like, I do think that noise, and again, they have to do it in the 2nd round. They have to like advance out of this round and do it in the conference finals. And like I said, with the Harden big game stuff, the narratives are always, they're sticky, right? So they have to do it at a higher level than that. But I think it's really hard to not be pleased with the way that those two played in the first round.
So next thing I want to ask you is that, what are you looking at as how the Cavs are going to match up with the Pistons defensively? There's been a lot of talk I've seen of people assuming, I think probably rightfully so, that Mobley will probably guard Ausar and then roam off of him. Is that what you're expecting to see, or is there a different strategy? Who's going to guard Cade? Where are you thinking the Cavs are going to be at defensively, matchup-wise, versus the Pistons?
So I do think that they'll probably start with Evan Mobley defending Ausar Thompson, because, as you know, he's not a threat from beyond the arc. He does do some really good things offensively, but he's not a guy that you need to pay attention to that far away from the basket. And that is where Evan is at his best. When he's in that role, he is just an elite level defensive player. So I think that's where they probably will start. My assumption is that Dean Wade stays in the starting lineup, and he has a history of defending Cade Cunningham really well. They don't have a ton of history this past season. I know Cade is a better player than he was previous seasons, but Dean didn't play in all the matchups against the Pistons because of an ankle injury, I believe it was. But I would imagine that's where he starts. And Cade has struggled at times against several guys on the Cavs. So that is one of the things to me, like one of the keys to me in this series is, how does Cade Cunningham find success? Because if you look at his numbers against the Cavs this year in the 4 games that he played, and I realize that situations are different every regular season, like how much do regular season games actually matter is a different conversation. But he averaged 18 points a game on less than 35% shooting, and he turned the ball over almost 4 times a game. Like, I think Jalen Tyson is probably going to see a lot of time defending Cade Cunningham. When Jalen was defending Cade was 5 of 18 from the floor, turned the ball over 5 times, and the Pistons averaged fewer than 1 point per possession offensively. Max Strus is probably a guy that's going to defend Cade at times, and Max didn't play against the Pistons at all this year because of a foot injury. But last year, he had really similar numbers against Cade as Jalen did this year. If push comes to shove, they'll put Evan Mobley on him too. Evan held Cade to 5 of 15 shooting. Like, I think that they probably feel pretty comfortable with some of the defensive options that they have against Cade. I do think it starts though with Evan Mobley defending Ausar Thompson and sort of roaming off of him.
All right, before we move on, I want to ask you, what's the one matchup? What's the one aspect? What's the one, I don't know, narrative? What is the one thing you're watching that you think is going to be important for the Cavs to beat the Pistons? What is it that you may be most worried about with the Pistons? What are you most watching for in regards of the Cavs have to do this or should be worried about this if they want to make it out of this round against the Pistons?
I think it's limiting turnovers. Like that is the thing that Toronto had a lot of success against the Cavs in the first round is they created a lot of turnovers. They were able to get fast break points and not every game, but some of the games. The Cavs did do a good job earlier in that series at limiting those opportunities. But if the Cavs turn the ball over, because Detroit, as you know, is not the greatest half court offense. They were, I believe, 12th in half court offense in the first round against an Orlando defense that I think is kind of similar to what the Cavs can be at their top end. I think Orlando's probably a little bit better when they're at their best and the Cavs are at their best. But like they're offensively a little challenged in the half court. And if the Cavs turn the ball over and allow the Pistons to get out on the run and create easy baskets like that, that is when I think it starts to become challenging. And I think Donovan Mitchell needs to go out there and have a much better series against the Pistons than he did against the Raptors. And I'm very interested when I start asking you questions, I'm really interested how the Pistons are going to choose to defend the Cavs, because I'm not sure that they can replicate Toronto's defensive strategy where they're top locking both guards at the same time. I don't know if the Pistons have the personnel to do that. That's something that fascinates me. And I'm just like, I do think if the Cavs limit how often they turn the basketball over, and they did a good job of this in Game 7, and they've shown to do a good job of this at times, and they believe a lot of their turnovers, right or wrong, they believe a lot of them were self-inflicted. If they handle that, I think they have a really good chance to win this series.
All right, coming up, Danny will then ask me questions about the Pistons, what he's wondering about in this matchup. It would be a good one. Then later on, we will give our predictions. Spoiler alert, I'm assuming we'll both pick our respective teams. We'll continue on and see what Danny has to ask coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like playoff basketball live. The intensity, the crowd, the rivalries. It's a completely different experience when you're in the building. The NBA playoffs are where unforgettable moments happen, and being there in person just hits different. Game Time makes it incredibly easy to find tickets, even for those hard-to-get playoff games, in just a few taps. And with the Game Time guarantee, you know you're getting 100% authentic tickets on time at the best price. The Seat View feature is a game changer. You can see the view from your seat before you have to purchase the tickets. You don't have to worry about were those tickets good for me. You will know before you have to buy it. Also, plus with the lowest price guarantee, and ticket coverage, you can feel confident every time you're buying tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today and use code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your first purchase. Again, with Game Time. Then also, I got to tell you guys about another one of our sponsors. This one is Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress. My goodness, I'm struggling here. Less time, more results. We need the right person to cut through the chaos. It is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves. Indeed.com/podcast. Let's go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons and Locked On Cavs your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Danny, it's really hot in here. I'm not going to lie. This wig is making me really hot, and I'm struggling here.
You're not used to having hair like that, brother.
It's been a while. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a few years. But hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Check out the Everydayer Club in the description down below. But Danny, go ahead and take the reins here. Ask whatever questions you have concerning your my Detroit Pistons, I should say.
So I think the thing that to me, and I talked about it a little bit at the end of the last segment, that is the most fascinating is how are the Pistons going to try and defend the Cavs? Because Cleveland comes into this series like they are the better offensive team. I think they have better offensive weapons. They certainly have more creation than what I think the Pistons have. And the Pistons have this elite level defensive player on the wing in Ausar Thompson. He was a defensive player of the year finalist. I think like he is a top 5 player defensively in basketball at this point. It's fair to say. And he can do a lot of different things defensively, but where do you think they deploy him?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. You could go obviously either Donovan Mitchell or James Harden. I've seen a lot of people talk about this, and I've seen different answers. Right now, where I'm leaning, I probably would rather have him on Mitchell and just try to take Mitchell away, and just play uber aggressive with him, and force James Harden to beat you. But I've seen a lot of people also suggest maybe putting him on James Harden, and then in Donovan Mitchell pick and rolls, just blitzing him, or having Jalen Duren play higher at the level and try to force Donovan Mitchell into being a playmaker. I think that's a fine idea too. They like to use Ausar in a bunch of different ways. In this Magic series, you saw him guarding Suggs, and then you see him guarding Banchero, then you see him guarding Kane. You'd see him all over the place, and depending on who he was guarding, he would roam at times. He would play aggressive off ball as a top blocking, like you mentioned, denying the ball. You'd see him all over the place. So I'm sure the Pistons will move him around quite a bit. But I think for me, I probably would put him on Donovan Mitchell. I view him as more of a threat here. I think the Pistons can try to do some things with James Harden, try to maybe not take him out the game, or kind of put the game in his hands and ask him to beat the Pistons. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell is great. He's going to get his points. He's going to get his game off. Ausar is not going to hold him to 0 points. But I think if you can put Ausar and really take away their best scorer and their best player, in my opinion, I think that gives you a better chance. You can't force a player that has had some playoff struggles in his career, and James Harden, to try to beat you at this point in his career, especially as he's getting older. I think that's probably where I would start at, but I won't be shocked if JB doesn't, switch it up and flip it around as the series goes on, depending on how everything's going.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I'm most interested in. Partially because like Donovan is coming off of this below average by his standards playoff series. And one of the things that like really stood out to me is the way the Raptors were able to use their physicality on him, because there has been one guy historically that just gives Donovan all kinds of problems defensively, and that's Lou Dort. And the Raptors use Scotty Barnes a lot on Donovan in this series, and Scotty is like, one of the things that makes Donovan special is not only how athletic he is, but how strong he is for a guy his size. And the fact that Scotty Barnes has like 30 pounds on him, I think really made a difference. So I'm curious if, because Ausar is not like as physically imposing as Scotty Barnes is, like he's just not as large of a guy, I wonder if that shifts him to Harden to try and take away that pick and roll, because I do think that if they do put Ausar Thompson on Donovan Mitchell, we are going to see James Harden just run pick and roll after pick and roll and target Duncan Robinson over and over again and really make the Pistons work defensively. So that kind of gets me to the next guy I'm curious about, because Cavs fans watched Duncan Robinson try and play in a playoff series last year against them, and it didn't go well. And I get that the defensive infrastructure that the Pistons have is better than what that joke of a Miami Heat team had last year. But how do you think the Pistons can hide him defensively?
So I thought they found something a little bit in Game 7 against the Magic. Game 7, I thought, was the one time you saw the Pistons for a full 48 minutes look like the team we had seen all year. They were locked in from the defensive end, on the defensive end from tip-off. And something they started to do, which I think you'll probably see them do a little bit more of in this series, they started to play Jalen Duren really high in pick and roll. They started to have him blitz a little bit. They started to have him play more aggressively. And I think what off ball, I feel like Duncan has actually been a pretty good defender for them. Like he not pretty good is probably strong. Just being in the right spots and rotating, making the right rotations, knowing where to be, knowing when to tag and get back out to his defense or his matchup. He did a great job of that in Game 7. He's also really active with his hands. That's not the problem with him, is staying in front of guys. He actually is pretty handsy on the defensive end of the floor. I think when it comes to, I don't think that's where I'd assume that the Pistons will be aggressive and they trust Duncan to make the right rotations off the ball. I think where the problem is, I think this is what you're really insinuating, is that when James Harden or Duncan Robinson, not Duncan Robinson, Donovan Mitchell, I'm struggling with this hat on, man. This hair is struggling. When Donovan Mitchell calls up Duncan Robinson's man in a screen and roll and tries to get the switch, the Pistons throughout the first round really tried to show and recover. They didn't want to give up that mismatch very often. Sometimes they got it, and then they would show late doubles at the end. I don't think that's something they can really do against Donovan Mitchell. Paolo Banchero is very much slower and likes to get into the post and kind of like slow the game down to where you can then time your doubles, whereas Donovan Mitchell will bring it out to the perimeter, and you can't really send a double, 30 feet from the rim, and you can attack downhill, and that's really when you get in some trouble. So I expect the Pistons to try to show and recover a ton, which they had some success and also some miscommunications in the first series with Orlando. At the very least, they'll try that. I won't be surprised, though, if this is a series that you see Ron Holland get back into the rotation and start to see some more Ron Holland minutes to where he can be a defender on the floor. Maybe even Kevin Huerter, if he starts to get back and he's healthy, they go to Kevin Huerter a little bit more, who's a better defender. As long as Duncan, though, is hitting shots, it seems like JB will trust him and just trust that their defensive infrastructure will be able to hide him and make up for what he brings. But it really just comes down to, will he be able to provide what they need from him offensively? If not, I don't think that they'll shy away from getting someone else in there. Maybe a Javonte Green probably is the most likely option to get him in there with Cade, Ausar, JD, and Tobias. That lineup actually did really well against Orlando, made it really switchable, made to where there wasn't really anyone to pick on. So I won't be surprised if JB really relies on Wu, but Duncan will get his chance to get through the series defensively. And if he's not getting it through and he's not, hitting shots offensively, I think this could be a Javonte Green around Holland series.
What do you think the Pistons need to do offensively to keep up with the Cavs?
So I actually think that the Pistons should have an easier time against the Cavs scoring than they did against the Magic. I think the Magic, for two reasons why. One, I think the Magic had more positional size than the Cavs do. I think the Cavs have more spots where you can pick on. And I think that's Donovan Mitchell, obviously, and James Harden. I think they can try to pick on those guys, even if Donovan Mitchell is giving full effort. And I know, James Harden is a fine post-up defender at times when he wants to give effort. Cade will just have the size advantage over them. And just like Jalen Suggs, who's a really good defender in his own right, Cade kind of just had his way with Suggs because he's just smaller and he can raise up over him. I think he'll have the same thing with Donovan Mitchell. So I think that's something that they will continually try to hunt out. The other part of it is Jalen Duren performs much better against Jared Allen, at least during the regular season. We saw he does a much better job against those guys than he did against Wendell Carter Jr. in the first round. And he started to wake up a little bit towards the end of the series. But I think the Pistons expect Duren to be able to really test what you mentioned in the first segment of, have the Cavs really buried the soft narrative? Are they, ready after the first round series against the Raptors? Does that really get them physically ready to handle what the Pistons are going to come with? But I think the Pistons believe that Jalen Duren will be able to use his physicality a little bit more in this series against Mobley and Allen. Now, Mobley and Allen offer a different challenge when it comes to length. But Duren's done a pretty good job. He even did a pretty good job against Wemby when he's able to just move guys off the platform with the strength and kind of just raise up and dunk, whatever. So Pistons fans, or not Pistons fans, the Pistons believe that Duren will have a better series this round. They also believe the Pistons have some spots they can target with the Cavs. You are right, though, that Cade has struggled immensely against the Cavs this past regular season. I think the main thing that has to be watched for if you're a Pistons fan, will Cade's pull-up three-point shot continue to translate in the playoffs? He made a big jump in the regular season with this. In the first round, the last 3 games, he hit 61% of his threes. The pull-up jumper was really killing the Magic. If he's able to kill the Cavs from beyond the arc, I think it makes it much harder to guard him. I think one of the main reasons why the Cavs have done such a great job in the regular season guarding him is because they force him into the paint where they have 2 big defenders and 2 great defenders at the rim, and it makes it really hard for him to get anything off. If he can rely on his jumper a little bit more, which we saw in the first round, I think he'll be in a better spot. Lastly, I think JB started to find something with Ausar and how to use him offensively at the end of the Magic series, something I've been really asking for like 2 years. And they look like they finally started to find it and started to do it. So I think that will help him a little bit. But I think the main thing is they'll target a lot with Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, and they believe Jalen Duren will be able to do more secondary creation in this series than he did against Orlando.
Last thing for me, but what's your, I guess, like from a Pistons perspective, what is the biggest worry you think they have?
I think the Cavs by far, I've said this going into the playoffs. I said this for the last month of the playoff or the last month of the regular season, when there's a lot of talk of, are the Pistons frauds? Are they real? All this stuff. And my take has been, and it's been consistent, I haven't changed off it for a month and a half now, is I was shocked that they won 7 games against the Magic, and obviously Franz got hurt and that helped. I was shocked that it took 7 games to beat the Magic, because my stance has been, if the opposing team does not have a good enough offense to really put cracks into the Pistons defense, it doesn't matter that the Pistons offense won't be able to score a lot, because you just won't score enough against them. Like if you can't break down the Pistons defense enough, they will suffocate you more than you will suffocate them, despite their half-court issues, and they will get on the break more to where it doesn't matter. The teams that will give the Pistons the most problems should be the teams that are able to put enough cracks into the Pistons defense that force then the offense to pick up the slack and have to outscore you. If a team that can shift the responsibility from the Pistons defense to their offense to win a game will be the team I think that gives them the most trouble. Now, obviously, the Magic actually did give them trouble, so maybe this ends up not being true, but I think the Cavs present that issue. I think the Cavs have enough firepower offensively to where if they do start to find Duncan Robinson, and if they do really make them pay for playing Duncan Robinson, and JB keeps them out there a little too long, or they break down and get to the paint and able to find shooters outside, if they're able to do that kind of those kind of things with the talent they have, it will then shift the problem to the Pistons offense of, okay, we got to keep up then. And I don't think the Pistons can win that against a lot of teams. They're not the greatest half-court offensive team. Where they win in the margins, they turn you over, they dominate the glass, and they win the possession battle. If they can do that, they like their chances. But if you can be a team that chips away a little bit, just enough at their defense because your offense is so prolific, and shift the energy to, hey, Cade, hey, Duren, you guys got to score 1.1 points per possession. You guys got to score 115 points in this game to win. That's when it starts to get dicey. I think the Cavs are one of those teams that can try to force that. All good?
All good.
All right. We're coming up on the good stuff now. Predictions. Again, I'm going to go ahead and take a guess that Danny is probably going to pick the Cavs, and I'm probably going to pick the Pistons. But the interesting thing here is going to be, I think, what game do we think our teams win it in? We'll talk about it and break it down coming up.
You ever watch a game and think, I need to know what these fans are saying about this team right now? On Reddit, you're plugged into millions of fans who are just as hopeful, dramatic, analytical, and loyal as you are. The Reddit app is for authentic conversations about anything and everything. I love that there are different team subreddits for every single NBA team, so I know that if the Knicks are dominating the Hawks like in that game the other day, you can go right to the Hawks subreddit and say, how much are they breaking down and crashing out right now? I can go straight to the NBA one and see all kinds of great things. Reddit is where real fans hang out. Download the Reddit app and dive into your favorite team or the Mavericks subreddit for hot takes, fresh memes, and the group chat that literally never sleeps. Download the Reddit app today.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Kalshi. The playoffs are here. It's the most electric time in basketball. On Kalshi, you can trade every single playoff game, every series, the conference finals, and the championship. If you looked at the Game 7 game between the Orlando Magic and the Detroit Pistons, the Pistons were trading at that point at 77% to win that game and obviously win the series. As the playoffs heat up, those numbers move in real time. You can buy in or out at any time. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi, trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions to eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see Kalshi.com/regulatory. So I want to thank you guys again. Make Locked On Pistons your first listen and Locked On Cavs your first listen of every single day. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Again, free and available on all your podcast platforms. All right, Danny, let's go ahead and talk about our predictions. Let's get this out the way. I'm going to take a guess and say you're picking the Cavs to win. I just want to know.
How many games am I taking them in, Koo? How many games am I taking them in?
I'm going to guess and say you're picking them in 6, maybe
that
5.
Is true. No, I'm taking them in 6. The Cavs have struggled on the road in the postseason, but I think it's their time, man. I think that Raptors series was good for them, and they needed to overcome some adversity. And I think that they match up really well against Detroit because, like you said in your last answer, the last segment, they are a team that offensively they can force other teams to have to keep up with them. And I'm not sure that the Pistons have enough in that category to do so. I look up and down these rosters, and I think the Cavs are the more talented team. I don't think that either one of these coaches is necessarily like a great postseason coach, but after watching a lot of JB Bickerstaff in the postseason, both with Cleveland and Detroit, probably trust Kenny Atkinson a little bit more in that aspect. And I just overall think like it's kind of now or never for this group and for Donovan Mitchell. And I don't think that the Pistons are going to be the team that stands in their way.
All right. I can respect that. I am going to go with the Pistons in 7. I think this game, I think this series will go all 7 games. I think the Pistons having the 1 seed and being able to have that Game 7 at home is going to be huge for them. I think it was absolutely huge in their ability to come back 3-1 against Orlando. The fact that they were coming back home for Game 7 really, I think, made it I really felt like it was almost impossible they would lose that game 7. And I'm watching for, can the Pistons flex their muscle against the Cavs and win in these areas that we saw them win all year? They really struggled at times to do this against the Magic, and it really shocked me. They ended up turning it around in the final 3 games. They ended up being much more of the team that I expected. But against the Cavs, the Pistons should, I think, be able to win the margins that they're used to winning. They were one of the best teams. They were second in net possessions added per 100 possessions. They won the possession battle all nonstop all season long. They were one of the best rebounding teams in the NBA all season long. They were the best team at turning you over this year. They were better than OKC this year. So I think the Pistons, their defense, and I think they have a deep roster of defenders. They have multiple people that they'll be able to throw at the Cavs if something's not working. Like if Duncan's getting hunted, I think they can go to Javonte. I think they can go to Ron to try to give some defensive pressure to the Cavs. Now, is that going to hurt some of their half-court offense at times? Sure, but the Pistons are not – that's not where they try to win anyways. They need to win on defense. They need to win in transition. And I do think this is a team that the Pistons should be able to at least try. I mean, the Cavs, I thought, handled themselves well in round 1, but I'm going to need to see it in this second round that they'll be able to handle the physicality that the Pistons come with. I know the Raptors were very physical, but I said this in the beginning of the Magic series. I'll say it again. I don't think there's a team in the NBA that's more physical than the Pistons. And I'm always going to be shocked whenever a team beats them at their own game. Now, the thing about the Cavs, they don't have to beat them at their own game. They may just be able, they might just be able to outscore them. And that's where the Pistons are going to have to find some answers. I think they will. I think Cade is playing out of this world. I think the fact that he'll have some matchups that he can hunt out with Donovan and James will help him a little bit. I think his shot coming around, if it stays, I think that will help him quite a bit. And I really think that the swing factor for me will be if the Pistons found something with how they use Ausar Thompson on the offensive end of the floor versus teams that try to sag off him. They had Jalen Suggs roaming the entire series, and they really made them pay in the final 2 games for doing it. If that's something that JB has actually adjusted to, and not something we just saw on accident for 2 games, if that's something they actually have now finally realized and put into their offense, I am very interested to see if they can make Mobley pay for, or the Cavs pay for roaming off of them. If they can't, I think the Pistons might be in trouble. If they can, and they can score just enough in the half court, I do think the Pistons offer enough defensively. I think they even have the possibility to go double bigs with Stu and Duren. I think they have enough defensive personnel to flex their muscle on the Cavs. It's just a matter of, can the offense score enough points in the half court, and will they turn over the Cavs enough? We'll see. If James Harden has a great time not turning the ball over, and Donovan Mitchell doesn't turn the ball over as much as he did against the Raptors, I think the Pistons will be struggling. But I think this defense is good enough to turn them over still. And I think that we'll be walking into a Game 7 in Little Caesars Arena, and I give the home team the edge in that point.
Yeah, that's fair enough. The one thing I wonder about that, like the comparison of Suggs roaming off of Ausar compared to Mobley, like just Mobley's size and being able to recover a little bit more than Jalen Suggs can, because he's like got so much more length. I just wonder if that is as exploitable given how Mobley's a 7-footer and Jalen Suggs is 6'3".
Yeah, I think obviously he'll be more effective as a rim protector, as a weak side guy, and he obviously is longer, so he'll be able to take passes away. I think if they can execute what they were doing against the Magic in the final 2 games, I think it's replicable really against, it's kind of like what they were doing with Draymond Green and Golden State, like a lot of DHOs that off a kick out to Ausar in a corner, instead of him trying to drive it, immediately pitch into a DHO because Mobley's in the paint. I think even if Mobley's able to recover, if the Pistons are really intent on it, it's not just random offense, I do think it should still open up some openings. But Mobley and Allen are such good defenders that it's not like the Magic. Look, credit to the Magic, they pushed the Pistons 7 games. But the Magic, I don't think will be as locked in as the Cavs are. And because of Mobley and his length, and because of Allen and his length, you really, this is not something that you have to do. Oh yeah, I can do this. And then they're not going into it intently and with tempo. If they can execute it, I think it's something they can find openings with. It's going to be hard. Mobley is he's one of the best defenders in the league as well. So it's going to be tough to figure out. I think they can. But this battle, I think, is really just going to come between, I think you probably agree as well, the Cavs offense versus the Pistons defense. Who wins that matchup? Whoever wins that matchup is who's going to win the series. If the Cavs are able to keep scoring on the Pistons will not be able to keep up. They do not have the half-court offense to do so. But if the Pistons can turn the Cavs over and keep them in these low-scoring games, I think it's going to be tough for the Cavs to beat them in that game. So this is one of those ones I really like seeing, though, because it's strength on strength, whereas the Magic felt like it was just a team trying to beat the Pistons at their own game. I didn't think they could do that. I don't think any team can do that. Versus this series, it's, hey, you guys' defense is great, but our offense is better. We'll see who plays out here. And that's what makes it even more interesting to me.
We will find out on Tuesday night to start. I agree with that, but we will find out then.
Are you going to be in Detroit?
Oh, yeah. I don't miss playoff games, man. I drove to Toronto twice. Detroit is a much easier drive. It was fine. It was longer than I would have liked. I was annoyed I had to go back for a game 6. I'll tell you that much.
All right, man. I'll see you Tuesday then for the Pistons game. I will be there as well. Fans of the Cavs, Pistons, let us know in the comment section down below. I think we know which side you guys are going to pick, but let us know how many games you think your team will take. And what do you think is the biggest X factor, the biggest thing you're watching for, biggest aspect of the game that will give either team the advantage moving on? I think this will be a very fun series. I already see some people saying that, I saw some national pundits saying whoever wins this series is going to lose to whoever comes out of the next round. I don't think that's the case.
I disagree with that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I disagree.
I think if the Pistons, I think either one of these teams would beat the Knicks. And I think the Knicks will beat the Sixers. The Pistons, obviously, in the regular season, dominated New York. And I think that the Cavs, the way they are built right now, in the one matchup they faced the Knicks, they beat them pretty good. And I know that that's just a regular season matchup, but I think both these teams match up pretty well against New York.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely disagree with what I was hearing today on some of the national shows. I think whoever wins this series going to the finals. I don't think either of those other teams, especially the Sixers, they're not trustworthy. But even the Knicks, I think no matter Cavs, Pistons, I think this is going to be who goes to the NBA Finals. We'll find out over the next week or so. It's fun that we're finally getting Pistons, Cavs again. What I'm looking forward to is the Pistons breaking that losing streak. You guys have
12
really
games, man.
It just really pushed us around for a minute, man.
Are you excited to see the Cavs playing the Pistons in those navy blue throwback uniforms?
As long as there's not number 23 out there, we're good. I'll be fine. Maybe. I'll be fine with the jerseys as long as I don't see number 23. If the jersey, I honestly like those. Those are my favorite ones of the Cavs. I hate all the other ones. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, these are the best ones. I am bummed that they're not wearing them in Detroit. I really wanted them to wear them.
Do you know what jersey they're already wearing?
They're wearing black in games 1 and 2. They're wearing the navy jerseys at home in games 3 and 4.
Fair enough. Then the Pistons are going to be wearing their home uniform. The Pistons were
wearing
the same
white
uniform.
in all 4 games.
They wore the same
uniforms all 7 games. They're wearing them the first 4.
That's crazy, man. I don't think I've ever seen that before. All right, we're going on too long here. Thank you guys for listening. For Locked On Cavs, that's Danny Cunningham, Locked On Pistons. You guys know, I guess you guys have to call me Clown Coup today. This will not ever happen again. This has given me so much headache right now. Appreciate all of you guys for making us your first listen of every single day. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. And until next time, we will see you guys later. Stay safe out there, and peace out, everybody.